Every season, we see drivers getting penalised for taking too many engines, but not normally this early in the season. Charles Leclerc starting at the back of the grid in Montreal meant that we were denied the battle between him and Max at the start of the race. So why do drivers receive engine penalties, and what do the penalties involve? Well, you're about to find out. Formula 1 engines are incredible pieces of engineering. They produce an insane amount of power for how small they are and are some of the most complex engines in the world. To achieve the level of performance they do, they're engineered to an incredible degree of precision. As the engines are used, they naturally accrue some wear and tear, and the performance they're capable of producing slowly starts to decrease. If F1 teams had unlimited money and zero concerns about the environment, they would use a brand new engine every session to get the maximum possible performance every time the car hits the track. But with the engines costing something around $10 million, that is simply impossible. The budget difference between the top teams and the bottom teams is huge, and if teams were allowed to use as many engines as they wanted, the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari would have a massive advantage. In the aid of competitiveness and to stop teams being wasteful, they're limited to how many engines they can use each season. The too long didn't read summary is that drivers are allowed 3 engines a season before they start getting docked grid positions, but it really isn't that simple. Let's start by looking at the F1 power unit and its various components. This generation of Formula 1 power units consists of 7 elements, and drivers are only allowed to use a set number of each power unit element before receiving grid penalties. When a power unit element is taken, it becomes part of a pool. Parts in that pool can be swapped around without penalty. Those power unit elements and their allocations are 3 internal combustion engines or ICEs, 3 motor generator units heat aka MGUH, 3 motor generator units kinetic or MGUK, 3 turbochargers, 2 energy stores, 2 control electronics, and 8 exhausts. The drivers get so many exhausts because they're away from the center of the car and are easier to damage in an accident. The rest of the parts are all contained centrally in the chassis, so are pretty well protected in the case of a collision. These parts don't apply to each driver though, they apply to each car. So Red Bull has Car A and Car B. Max drives Car A and Sergio drives Car B. If Max leaves halfway through the season, the amount of components he used while driving Car A still applies to Car A when the new driver joins. So if Max used 3 internal combustion engines already, the new driver would have those engine uses against his name as well. So you've exceeded your allocation of an engine part. Now it's time for the FIA to hand out the dreaded grid penalties. Penalties are given in the following manner. The first time an additional element is used, the driver gets a 10-place grid penalty. The next time an additional element is used, the driver gets a 5-place grid penalty. If a driver incurs a penalty exceeding 15 grid places, they'll be required to start the race from the back. Qualifying performance still matters though. If numerous drivers are starting down the same grid penalties, then qualifying decides the order in which they start. Hence in Canada this year, Charles Leclerc started 19th, having made it through to Q2, while the similarly penalty-affected Yuki Tsunoda started 20th, having failed to progress out of Q1. It's simple now, but a few years ago, drivers could amass huge engine penalties for a Grand Prix. Jenson Button holds the record with a 70-place grid penalty for the 2015 Mexican Grand Prix. While grid penalties might sometimes take away from the action, they do also create some pretty incredible stories. At the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2021, Lewis Hamilton started the sprint race from the back of the grid due to a grid penalty. He charged from last to 5th in the 24-lap race on Saturday, and then went on to win the race on Sunday. It was a pretty incredible story that would never have happened if he hadn't been punished for taking too many engines. Do you think the grid penalties are fair? What is the best drive you've seen from the back of the grid? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And while you're down there, please subscribe to F101 and I'll see you in the next video.